Hey everyone, it's Dr. Greg Jones. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've spent years working with patients on hormone optimization, regenerative medicine, and peptide protocols. And one compound that comes up constantly in clinical conversations and patient questions and the broader optimization community is IGF-1 LR3. It's one of the most powerful anabolic and regenerative signals in human physiology. It's also one of the most misunderstood, either dismissed as a fringe compound or hyped without the clinical nuance it deserves. So today we're going to fix both of those problems. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what IGF-1 LR3 actually is, how it's different from regular IGF-1, what it does inside the body at the cellular level, and who it's most relevant for, and what the clinical picture looks like, including the important safety considerations that rarely get discussed in the optimization space. So whether you're an athlete pushing your recovery ceiling, someone exploring longevity medicine, or a clinician trying to build a clearer picture of the growth hormone IGF axis, this one's for you. So here's what we're going to cover. What is IGF-1 and what makes IGF-1 LR3 different? How IGF-1 LR3 works at the cellular level, the key clinical applications, muscle, recovery, and tissue repair, and who it's most appropriate for, and also who should be cautious. We'll talk a little bit about dosing context and clinical safety considerations, but first, let's start with the biology. So to understand IGF-1 LR3, you first need to understand where IGF-1 itself fits in the body's signaling hierarchy. When your pituitary gland releases growth hormone, it travels through the bloodstream to the liver. The liver reads that signal and responds by producing insulin-like growth factor 1 or IGF-1. And IGF-1 is what does most of the actual work, stimulating tissue growth, cellular repair, protein synthesis, and regeneration throughout the body. So think of growth hormone as a memo from the CEO of your body. It goes out broadly to the whole organization. And think of IGF-1 as a department manager who receives that memo. They translate that memo into specific action items and actually get the work done on the ground. So think of growth hormone as setting the intention, IGF-1 is executing it. Now, regular IGF-1 has a fundamental limitation in how it works. In the bloodstream, it binds quickly and tightly to carrier proteins called insulin-like growth factor binding proteins or IGF-BPs. These proteins sequester IGF-1, essentially putting it into a holding pattern. And only a fraction of circulating IGF-1 is actually free and biologically active at any given time. Now, IGF-1 LR3 is a modified version of IGF-1. It's engineered to solve that problem. The LR3 designation stands for long R3. It refers to specific structural modifications at the amino acid level that dramatically reduces its binding affinity for the IGF-BPs. And regular IGF-1 in the bloodstream is like a delivery driver whose truck keeps getting stopped at checkpoints and held for inspection. Most of the deliveries get delayed or never arrive. And IGF-1 LR3 is that same driver with a special clearance badge that lets him pass through every checkpoint without stopping. Far more deliveries actually reaching their destination. Now, what's the practical result? IGF-1 LR3 has a biological half-life of approximately 20 to 30 hours, compared to just a few minutes for regular IGF-1 and a few hours for IGF-1 that's bound to IGF-BPs. So IGF-1 stays active in our system significantly longer, and a much higher proportion of it reaches the target tissues to do the job. So what happens when IGF-1 LR3 actually reaches a cell? It binds to the IGF-1 receptor, a receptor found on the surface of virtually every tissue in the body. When that binding happens, it triggers a cascade of intracellular signaling, and it has three major downstream effects. Effect number one, protein synthesis. IGF-1 activates pathways in our body for building new proteins. In muscle tissue specifically, this means accelerated synthesis of contractile proteins, faster repair of micro-damaged muscle fibers after training, and a net shift in the muscle towards an anabolic state. So if your muscle cells are like a construction site, IGF-1 LR3 is like calling in a second shift of workers, doubling the supply of building materials, and telling the foreman to push ahead on every project simultaneously. The rate of building goes up across the board. Now, effect number two is cellular proliferation and differentiation. IGF-1 stimulates muscle satellite stem cells. Now, these are the stem cells that sit dormant alongside muscle fibers until they're needed for repair. IGF-1 LR3 activates them, causes them to multiply, and signals them to differentiate into mature muscle cells that fuse into the existing fiber. This is not just recovery, this is actual structural remodeling of the tissue. The same proliferative effect extends beyond muscle. IGF-1 receptors are present in bone, cartilage, connective tissue, and nerve tissue, which is why IGF-1 LR3 has implications well beyond body composition. Speaking of body composition, what's really cool about IGF-1 LR3 is it does hyperplasia, not just hypertrophy. Hyperplasia is the production of new muscle cells, not just hypertrophy. So getting new cells, not just making them bigger, leading to in my opinion, a better effect on muscle building long term. And effect number three is anti-apoptotic signaling. Apoptosis is programmed cell death, the process by which damaged or stressed cells are eliminated. In the context of recovery from intense training or tissue injury, some degree of apoptosis is normal, but excessive apoptosis slows repair and contributes to tissue loss. IGF-1 LR3 promotes cell survival signaling, keeping more cells alive through the recovery window and allowing repair mechanisms to complete their work. So think of apoptosis as a building being condemned and demolished because it has structural damage. Sometimes that's the right call. But if your demolition crews are too aggressive, they start taking down buildings that could have been repaired. IGF-1 LR3 essentially puts a hold on the demolition orders, giving the repair crews more time to do their work before the wrecking ball arrives. So, where does this translate into real world clinical utility? There are three areas where I see IGF-1 LR3 used most meaningfully. First, muscle development and body composition. This is the most widely discussed application. The combination of enhanced protein synthesis, satellite cell activation, and anti apoptotic signaling creates a uniquely favorable environment for muscle growth and remodeling. And for athletes and individuals doing serious resistance training, IGF-1 LR3 can meaningfully accelerate the rate at which training adaptations are realized. The key word there is accelerate. It amplifies the response to a training stimulus. It's not a substitute for it. You still got to work out. Next is accelerated injury recovery and tissue repair. Because IGF-1 receptors are present across multiple tissue types, the regenerative effects extend to tendons, ligaments, cartilage, and bone. For patients recovering from musculoskeletal injuries or dealing with chronic joint issues, the ability to upregulate repair signaling across these tissues is clinically meaningful. And this is where IGF-1 LR3 fits naturally alongside other regenerative peptides like BPC-157 and TB4 in an integrated protocol. Next is metabolic and body composition optimization. IGF-1 LR3 improves insulin sensitivity at the cellular level and promotes preferential uptake of nutrients into muscle tissue over fat tissue. The net effect is a shift in body composition. More of what you consume goes towards building and fueling lean mass rather than being stored as fat. And for patients working on metabolic health, this can be a meaningful adjunct to dietary and lifestyle interventions. Now, for the part of this conversation that doesn't always get enough airtime, who this compound is actually appropriate for, and where we should exercise significant caution in clinical practice. IGF-1 LR3 is best suited for adults with specific, well defined goals: serious athletes optimizing recovery, patients in supervised regenerative protocols for musculoskeletal injury, or individuals working on body composition within a comprehensive clinical framework. The common thread here is context and supervision. This is not a casual compound. This is important. IGF-1 is a growth signal. That's its job, and it does it well and it does it broadly. The same pathways that promote muscle repair and cellular proliferation are the pathways that cancer cells exploit for growth. There is no conclusive evidence that IGF-1 LR3 causes cancer, but anyone with a personal or family history of hormone sensitive cancers or active neoplastic disease should not be using this compound. Full stop. Be careful with that. I also like to exercise caution with patients who have active inflammatory conditions, uncontrolled diabetes, or significant cardiovascular disease. The potency of the systemic signaling here warrants a thorough clinical evaluation before any use. So, IGF-1 is like high octane fuel. In a well maintained, properly tuned engine, it delivers exceptional performance. In an engine with underlying mechanical issues you haven't diagnosed yet, that same fuel can accelerate a problem you didn't know was there. The fuel isn't inherently dangerous, but the condition of the engine matters enormously before you use it. So, in clinical practice, IGF-1 LR3 is typically administered by subcutaneous or intramuscular injection. Common protocol ranges sit between 10 to 25 micrograms a day, used in cycles, often 4 to 8 weeks, with structured time off to prevent receptor desensitization and allow the body's own IGF-1 axis to recalibrate. This is not something you stay on for a long period of time. You don't want those receptors to become ineffective. Dose, cycle length, and protocol design should always be individualized by a clinician with experience in this space. But the side effects of standard doses are generally manageable, the most common being transient hypoglycemia, a little bit of blood sugar drop if you're not careful, joint discomfort at high doses, and occasional fluid retention. These are typically dose dependent and resolved with adjustment. So let's bring it all together. IGF-1 LR3 is one of the most potent anabolic and regenerative tools in the peptide and hormone optimization space. It works by bypassing the natural limitations of endogenous IGF-1, staying active longer, reaching more tissues, and driving a broader cascade of repair and growth signaling than the native molecule can. These applications are real and clinically meaningful. Muscle development, injury recovery, tissue repair, and metabolic optimization. But so is the need for appropriate clinical context. Potency and precision go together. This is a compound that delivers results and one that also rewards careful evaluation, proper dosing, and supervised use. When used correctly, IGF-1 LR3 is one of the most compelling tools available for anyone serious about optimizing recovery and tissue health. Used carelessly, though, is exactly the kind of compound that gives the broader peptide space a credibility problem. So, if you've been exploring ways to optimize your recovery, support tissue repair, or improve body composition through a functional medicine lens, IGF-1 LR3 might be a key piece of the puzzle worth a deeper conversation with your provider. So, if you found this breakdown useful, hit that like button, subscribe for more research backed content on peptides and longevity medicine, and share this with someone in your circle who's been thinking about IGF-1. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Greg Jones, and I'll see you in the next one.